Thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at.
But they're not arresting and taking anybody away from Illinois.
Democratic lawmakers are digging in on their fight against redistricting in Texas, despite a potential bomb threat at their Illinois hotel. A worth of investment has brought jobs, higher education, and stability to a far south side community. A look at whether it can be a model for other parts of the city.
I'm what a return on your investment looks like.
The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America gets its first black presiding bishop. We talk with him about his new role and vision for the church.
Your alderperson works with their 49 colleagues to set policy on big citywide issues like safety.
And what would you say you do here? WTTW News explains what exactly a Chicago alderperson does. And now to some of today's top stories. An alleged bomb threat at a suburban hotel forces Texas Democrats to evacuate along with some 400 people. The lawmakers have been in Illinois this week in protest of a redistricting vote in their home state. In a statement, Representatives Jean Wu, Ramon Romero, and Barbara Gervin Hawkins said, quote, "We are safe, we are secure, and we are undeterred and unintimidated. We are grateful for Governor Pritzker, local and state law enforcement for their quick action to ensure our safety." St. Charles police confirmed the threat came in at 7:15 this morning at the Q Center Hotel and Convention Complex, but a search found nothing. To read more about this investigation, please visit our website. Meanwhile, Governor Pritzker today pushed criticism from Republicans who say Democrats in Illinois are hypocritical because of how the state draws its congressional districts.
Sorensen was running, these are all in 2022. Everybody said those were competitive races. So you can't tell me that these were drawn so that only Democrats could win.
And it's not really the Illinois State Fair without this 104-year-old tradition, the annual butter cow. Today, the governor and first lady unveiled the 800-pound unsalted butter beauty in the dairy building to kick off this year's Illinois State Fair, which begins tomorrow. This is the 9th year running that sculptor Sarah Pratt has carved the cow, this time with a companion, an adventurer seeking hidden treasure across the fairgrounds. And if you can't make it to Springfield, you can move on over to the Butter Cow live stream. You can find that link on our website. Up next, we meet with the Evangelical Lutheran Church's new leader.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
It's a new era of leadership in the Lutheran community, but also a historic one. The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America elected its first black presiding bishop last week. Bishop Yehiel Curry, who currently leads the Metropolitan Chicago Synod, will start his new role in October. Joining us with more is the presiding bishop-elect himself, Yehiel Curry. Bishop, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So was this a position that you ever felt called to be in?
I wouldn't say called. I was just doing the daily work and routine in the Metropolitan Chicago Synod. And in many ways, this is an example of the church saying, we see you. And so I didn't go into our assembly thinking that I would be elected the presiding bishop. My name was lifted up, and after prayer and conversation with family and friends, I decided to allow my name to stay in. And this happened.
And here you are. So you'll also be, of course, the church's first black presiding bishop. What does that mean for you?
Yeah, I like to focus on the 20 years of work that I've been doing. I know it's new, it's inspirational, but I've been working for 20 years in this church, and at every turn they've said, hey, I see you. I was working on the South Side in Riverdale, Illinois, as a pastor, and then was elected bishop, and then I was the chair of the Conference of Bishops. So for me, I do see this as someone who's put forth the work, and the church has recognized the work that we've done and said, hey, we see you.
Yeah. So you've said that, early on in your career, you initially didn't necessarily feel called or didn't feel good enough for ministry. What made you change your mind to pursue this?
It has always been someone's looking at me and saying, here's what I see in you. I started out in social work and just really didn't think that was something I would be good at. But someone said, I think you'd be good at this, and it worked out. I was a 6th grade teacher in Chicago Public School and was a little bit reluctant, but was really excited when I looked back over the impact that I had. And even when it came to ministry, it took me 2 years to say yes, because you start thinking about your gifts and your skills and do they line up? But yet again, when I look back at my time as a pastor, I feel like those things that people saw in me, I lived up to. And yet again, I just didn't know if my gifts aligned well with the office. And so it took some encouragement. And so I think I always focus on that self-doubt, but others were saying, you got this, and encouraged me to move forward.
So you mentioned your more sort of non-traditional path, being a social worker, being a teacher before pursuing your theological education. You were, and that's a little bit different from some of the elite academic backgrounds of previous ELCA leaders. But you were also Catholic when you were younger, before coming to the Lutheran Church. What made you change?
Went to Catholic grammar school, high school, and college. One of my college friends invited me to a worship service that had a focus on mentoring young black boys in a program called Simba, Safe in My Brother's Arms. Now, I was on the south side of Chicago, and I went to this church not even knowing that it was Lutheran. Fell in love with the ministry, which was Shekinah Chapel. Started attending, and probably 2 years later learned that it was Lutheran. So I went into a church looking for ministry and found the Lutheran Church.
For folks who may not be as familiar with what the Lutheran Church stands for, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say to them that the Lutheran Church prides itself on grace, God's word for all people, loving each and every person. But more importantly, we are building up leaders, lay leaders, church leaders, for a church of God's reignum that represents everyone.
So according to the Pew Research's 2023 to 2024 religious landscape study, 95% of ELCA members are white, just 1% are black, 1% Hispanic. Why do you think this religion, and the Lutheran Church specifically, remains predominantly white? Because the population certainly is not 95% white.
Yeah, I think we get comfortable sometimes, and as community changes and shifts, we go into things that we're familiar with. But what's happening now is we're starting to branch out a little bit. I can't necessarily speak to why it's remained. I just know what I am going to be focused on, and that's making sure that people like myself, who's been in this church, who's done the work, who continues to lead, and make sure that everyone knows that we're here. And hopefully that'll start the work and diversifying our ministries.
Yeah, because that said, you have led a black congregation on the city's far south side. Is there a way to appeal to black communities? Because we also know that, black people tend to worship together, right?
Yes.
Like most churches are mostly black, and sometimes they get to be a bit more diverse. But is there a way to appeal to black communities with your ministry?
Yeah, I think the funny part is I didn't know the Lutheran Church was white. And so when you're leading in context and everybody in the pew looks like you and the worship looks the same, you start to think that, hey, this is how the entire denomination is. And so as we begin to travel, as we begin to build relationships, as we begin to meet other church leaders, congregations throughout the country, then we began to recognize that we were in a predominantly white denomination. And some of that work has proven really successful about sharing different cultures, beliefs, and I think that's where the work starts.
The Lutheran Church, like other denominations, has been losing membership over the years, despite efforts to become more diverse. What ways can the church adapt, but also address that membership decline?
I hope the way I came into ministry is part of the answer. A church was closing in Riverdale, Illinois, and I was asked to lead a new ministry. And so sometimes in that closure, there is an opportunity for some birth. There is opportunity for resurrection. And what we found on the south side of Chicago, but also in Riverdale, Illinois, was there was a great opportunity for us to grow a ministry. It might look a little bit different, but it can be successful.
So you are currently presiding bishop-elect. You start your new, I know, still getting used to it. You start your position in October. What's your vision for the role? How do you plan to shape the future of the church?
The one thing is embodiment. We have a lot of great statements. We have a lot of great goals that we want to do. But embodying means bringing a larger and a larger group alongside with these goals and living them out. So I think embodying what we say we stand for is really the focus.
What would you say you need to do to prepare between now and October?
Pray.
Lots of that.
Prayer, but relationships, and continue to meet people where they are, listen, and to share.
Okay. Bishop Yehiel Curry, congrats again. Thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Up next, Pullman has been reaping benefits from years-long investments. We unpack how right after this. An area on the city's far south side is seeing the benefits of economic investment. A $693 million investment into the Pullman community has generated a $1.5 billion economic impact. That's according to a new report commissioned by the Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives. That's a nonprofit real estate developer that's spent over a decade investing in the area. Joining us now are David Doig, the president of the Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives, longtime Pullman resident Philinda Wiley, and Ninth Ward Alderman Anthony Beal, whose far south side ward includes neighborhoods like Pullman, Rosedale, and Riverdale. Welcome, all of you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
So, Alderman Beal, let's go back in time a little bit. What were some of the economic struggles that Pullman residents might have been facing 15 years ago or so?
Well, it was the food desert. We have a food desert, we had a health desert, and we've addressed all of those things by bringing the Walmart in. The Walmart was the first anchor that really catapulted all the development that you see today. If it had not been for Walmart initially breaking the ice, you wouldn't see anything along the Bishop Ford Expressway. So we're really proud that Walmart was there, and now we have S.C. Johnson, we have Gotham Greens. And
food desert at the time, but what else was troubling the community? What else was
we didn't have any
need
jobs.
to work on?
We didn't have any jobs and opportunity. The red line still was not in existence, and people still couldn't get to jobs. So the jobs started coming in, and now that you see the investment, the jobs are coming in. We're doing housing. We're we have a sports complex, the Pullman Community Center, and I mean, when you look at all those things, we came at it from a holistic approach, and that's why you see crime coming down. That's why you see the investments, property values going up, and we're really proud of the accomplishments that we've had.
And all that development that you're talking about, of course, this is what C&I has worked to develop in Pullman Park. It is on the former Ryerson Steel site, which is a 180-acre plot that's been turned into mixed-use development. David, you commissioned research from the firm Anderson Economic Group, and it found that your organization's investments translated to more than 7,800 jobs, 4,571 of which, that's very specific, are in Pullman. It decreased unemployment rates by more than 7.8%, dropping from 21% to 13%, and pushing median household income in Pullman up from almost $38,000 to over $56,000 between the years 2010 and 2023. How have you been able to ensure that the economic investment in Pullman would be retained to the benefit of the community that's there?
Yeah, so first of all, let me just give a shout out to Alderman Beal. We couldn't have done this without stable political leadership and having an alderman who had been alderman for 10, 15 years, even before we started, and now being the most senior member of City Council has really helped us. So that's been a fundamental key part of our development strategy. As a place-based developer, we really look at the neighborhood and figure out kind of what the needs of the neighborhood are, and then endeavor to actually improve those, change those, and deliver for the neighborhood. So the Alderman mentioned the Walmart, the need for quality jobs. So our focus on industrial was very much motivated by the need for quality living wage jobs. The recreation, that was an identified need 15 years ago that the community said we need a safe place for our kids to play after school and during the winter. So we worked with the alderman to develop the Pullman Community Center. So all of these things they resonate originally from the community, and then as a community developer, our job is to execute on those aspirations and those needs.
How was Pullman sort of chosen or selected, or why Pullman for all of this? Because the argument could be made, any number of Chicago neighborhoods could use an organization like this.
For sure. Well, and we think every neighborhood needs that level of investment. I think what was unique for us is we started out of a local bank that had purchased the old Pullman Bank, and so we were physically located there. And at that time, the bank president said, you know, if we're taking deposits from the neighborhood, we should also be investing. So it was a very much kind of this old school banking mentality, and that's really how we got started. We bought the Ryerson Steel when we were part of the bank, and so that kind of got us going. We took an entire year, just listened to the community, did over 70 community meetings, and out of that came those aspirations and desires that the community had. So we've literally, for the last 15 years, just been trying to execute on those expectations of the community.
Philinda, I know you have lived in Pullman for knocking on 40 years. Tell me about the passionate Pullman garden that because I know gardening is your passion. So tell me about that.
That is my passion, thank you. The passionate Pullman garden is our community garden. It's been in existence since 2009 when, thank God, Alderman Bill and Dave Doig got together and said, okay, we can do this. We can renovate this garden, because it had gone under, kind of fell into the little disrepair because the people had, were no longer participating. So we partnered with Neighbor Space and we got the land developed, and not developed, I'm sorry, donated to us. And so tomorrow we're having our groundbreaking.
Right? CNI.
Yeah, through CNI,
okay.
Yes. So we're having our groundbreaking tomorrow.
Groundbreaking tomorrow. What can folks expect from this garden? What will we see?
They can expect fresh food growth. They can expect social activities. We'll have a chess table standard out there, in the ground. We'll have a pergola for sunshade. We will have different activities, such as we host a movie night once a month. We have plans to have spoken word poetry and bands and a lot of activities that we think will be good for the community.
Lots of community activities.
Yes.
Because you've been there for 37 years.
I have.
How would you say Pullman has changed? What would you say it's like today versus 20 years ago, 25 years ago?
Versus today versus 25 years ago, we have seen so much growth. And it has really been exciting to have the Pullman Historical National Park join us, Walmart join us. It's been exciting to have the Pullman Community Center, which is an indoor space. And the little strip mall and the different restaurants that we have, it's really been exciting for a lot of the community members, and the residents. We're excited about all the new development.
Alderman Beal, how could other communities across the city of Chicago replicate what's happening here?
Well, first what they have to do is listen to the community and then assemble a great team to carry out the vision of the community, because that's what we have done. David mentioned the 77 community meetings that we had before we broke ground one time. And we listened to the community, and we had a plan, and we are sticking to the plan. And having a great developer, having like he said, my tenure in the city council, and having residents stand behind the vision, I think that's what you need. And so once you put that plan in place, you cannot deviate from that plan, because every community can have a plan, and it's going to be unique to that particular community. And you just have to work it. Find out what your community needs, find some community people, and find a great developer, and work that plan. And I guarantee you'll see results.
David, your firm has been working with Pullman since 2010, as we've discussed, and a lot's changed since then, particularly recently, or in the last 5-10 years. President Donald Trump eliminating DEI programs recently, and the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund, which is an institution that provides federal tax credits and other incentives to help developers finance developments in underserved communities. How has all of that affected your work?
Yeah, so I think the good news, if there is any good news in the bill, was that the new market tax credit program was permanently extended. So this is something we've been working on for a decade. So that was a good thing. And the opportunity zone legislation was extended for another 10 years. So there were some silver linings, I think, in the bill. The downside is, when you look at a lot of these programmatic cuts, whether that's to CDFI programs, whether that's to housing assistance programs, medical, Medicare, Medicaid, those things are going to be devastating in terms of providing the resources for some of the work that groups like ours do across the city.
I mean, and despite, the extension or the making permanent some of the things that you mentioned, like the new market tax credit and the opportunity zones, are we sure that, developers, I mean, obviously yours is based there, but will other developers continue to maintain the work that they do in underserved communities?
I think that's a great question. I think we're going to have to see how that plays out. I think the good news in Chicago is, we do have local resources, so things like TIF and economic development bonds and those kind of things help spur that kind of development. And the state's been very supportive of our work. And so we've generally not relied heavily on federal resources other than those tax credit programs, but most of our development resources have come from either the state or the city of Chicago.
Philinda, about 30 seconds left. What else would you like to see happen in your community?
I like to see more housing renovation, more affordable housing go up, which is what is in the plans. And I would like to see more community involvement in different areas of our community. I'd like to see more people come out to the parks and more people come out to the community center, more people come out with their families, bringing their company or their guests to the neighborhood to explore and to tour and have a good time.
Okay, yeah, everybody wants to see everybody have a good time.
Yes, yes.
All right, I love it. That's where we'll have to leave it. My thanks to Philinda Wiley, David Doig, and Alderman Anthony Beal. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, what exactly does your local alderperson do? No answers? All right, we'll explain next. A new face will soon be joining the ranks at City Hall. That's because 27th Ward Alderman Walter Burnett has resigned after 30 years in office. Now Mayor Brandon Johnson has less than 60 days to appoint his replacement, who will serve until the next election in 2027. And in true Chicago fashion, Burnett is pushing for his son Walter Red Burnett to take a seat. But it's not a done deal. So if you're thinking of applying, here's Heather Sharon to explain what an alderperson actually does in tonight's edition of WTTW News Explains.
Every 4 years, residents of Chicago's 50 wards pick their representatives on the city council, officially known as alderpeople. They earn between $115,000 and $150,000 a year. Not too shabby for a job that comes with instant fame and allows for nearly unlimited side hustles. But what exactly does an alderperson do? Their official job can be divided into two big buckets: citywide duties and ward services. Your alderperson works with their 49 colleagues to set policy on big citywide issues like public safety, housing, and transportation. They also decide whether to raise or lower taxes and how to spend those bucks by passing a budget, which they negotiate with the mayor, who isn't a member of the city council but presides over its meetings. The mayor gets to pick who serves as chairs of the city council's nearly 24 committees. Those alderpeople have some real power and get to decide which ordinances and resolutions get a piece of the City Hall spotlight and stand a chance of becoming law. Life outside City Hall can be much less glamorous. Alderpeople are in charge of providing direct city services to the nearly 50,000 people in their ward. That's about the population of a well-sized suburb. And unfortunately for them, those 50,000 Chicagoans want that pothole filled now, and a new garbage cart now. And they want that tree in the parkway trimmed, you guessed it, now. But in return for dealing with the nitty-gritty details of city government, alderpeople are free to function like mini-mayors of their small part of the city under a decades-old tradition known as aldermanic prerogative. Fueled by the deference of the other members of the city council, each alderperson gets to decide much of what should and should not happen in their ward. That means if, for example, you want to open a unique, super niche specialty cafe, you best get the local alderperson on board before you slap the first coat of paint on the walls. While many alderpeople are dedicated public servants, more than a few have let that nearly unchecked power go to their heads and ended up becoming the mini-mayor of a much smaller piece of real estate, a prison cell. And if you think it's hard to get that pothole filled with your alderperson busy serving the community, you'll find that it's a lot harder when they're serving time.
You can catch more of our Emmy Award-winning series, WTTW News Explains, on our website. That's at WTTW.com/explains. And that's our show for this Wednesday night. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that contributes to public safety policy and guidelines.